Welcome to the Giving Business Soul podcast, where we speak with successful entrepreneurs who have learned to integrate soul and business, redefining leadership and ultimately utilizing business as a force for good. And those structures are like programs that they run, and they develop voices, and those voices are self-sabotaging and limiting. And I think as you begin to do some inner work and you start to go into those places, reframe them, bring your own compassion, then what seems to happen is that that voice goes from the self-sabotaging, to more of what you just explained a second ago, where it's like, no, it's okay, Hilda. You can do this. No, you are valuable. No, you are the daughter of a great high God. And but it's like the voice literally becomes the ally versus the foe.
Yes. Yes. And that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Again, it's so easily
it's so easy to say it now.
And
yes,
it's like all of a sudden it's like,
Yeah, it definitely has been a lot of work, and it's a lot of tug and pull, for me, because in the beginning it was challenging. Then you have that breakthrough, and then you hit that next capping point where you just gotta, okay, here comes the next one, and that tug and pull again, and then the next capping point. But if you recognize the expansion that happened from you get to that capping point, and you acknowledge it, and you're like, you have to, good job, keep it up, and da-da-da. You get to build on the next cap. Okay, here we go. You get the courage, I guess, to move on to the next capping point. Yeah. And before you know it, you look back and you're like, oh, snap. Like, I came from way down there, down there, in the sense of the insecurities, the skepticism, and so now it's like, I'm still insecure and I'm still skeptical. That hasn't gone away, unfortunately. I don't think it ever will. But I think it's because we need that in order to be like, okay, this is that's where the expansion, that's where the stretch happens. That's where the edge gets expanded, it's after a while, you almost want it. You almost want that, right? You want that adversity.
Yeah, exactly.
As much as I pout and I cry, hago mis berrinches, I do want it, because I know that when I'm done pouting, when I'm done with my berrinches, I'm going to do it mad. I'm going to do it with the tantrum. But when I come out of there, I'll be like, see, I told you, this is what's going to come from it. And then I reap all the benefits.
Right. Yeah. Then you go again to you go to that next level, the next chapter,
to do everything all over again.
Yeah, and it is. Right? Exactly. It's kind of like that video game, right? Where it's like you meet the boss at the end. The boss could be, this quality that you got to learn how to integrate so that you can get through this being per se. But I guess maybe with that, Hilda, let's drop in. I mean, I'd love to find out, really about when did your process begin? I mean, because here we are, just kind of setting the tone a bit and kind of connecting, and it's like your ability to language stuff is really remarkable. I mean, I remember you coming through the round table, but just in like how, you're coloring in details of how the mechanisms of the inner world works. It's like, wow, okay, like I it's like, that's what someone's in it, it's like they're, and I think, as it's like you start to sound poetic to other people, because it's like you're able to describe what's a little bit challenging. But I'd love for you to maybe kind of set the table for us, like, how long have you been on your journey, and really what catalyzed it? Because I know for so many, I think that's one of the things what we're trying to do at Giving Business Soul is like, you don't have to wait for crisis to begin this process. I don't know if your beginning into this space was maybe a crisis of some sort, but
mine fortunately it was my mother's passing. Shortly after that, a friend, me and a couple coworkers went to celebrate a girlfriend's birthday, and while we were out celebrating, she got hit by a car, and she ended up passing away because of the accident. And during those days, you go dark, right? You go dark, it goes bad. And I want to say what the point, I guess, the flip of the switch is, even though it's not really the flip of a switch, but the flip of a switch where the light came on or I was able to see into a different kind of view was I was folding clothes and I was watching Oprah's Super Soul Sunday.
Okay.
And she had, I think it was like George Zuvak, and it was like soul's journey or something like that. And he was describing how our soul is basically is like a ship following like the mothership, right? So it's like all the ships following the big ship, and we're just a little ship following. And I don't know how he said it, what he even said. All I remember is that I couldn't look away. Again, I couldn't look away. And I was like, oh my goodness, that makes a lot of sense. And he talked about how our soul just, we don't die physically, we pass away, but our energy lives on. And it kind of brought me comfort in knowing that my mom is still here. It just helped me with my grieving at that point. It had been 3 years of grieving. So it was just like, oh, wow, yes, my mom's still here. And I felt it. More than I heard it, I felt what he was saying, I guess. And after that, it was like I wanted to know as much as I could about what he was saying. So then I started reading books. I started listening to podcasts. I started watching YouTube videos to the point where that's all I wanted to do. I was like a little addict.
Wow.
And I went down that road and I slowly started discovering so much from there. And from there, all of these avenues opened up for me. And it was just a matter of where can I go next? And the exploration part has been absolutely amazing. But a roller coaster nonetheless.
Yeah. Mysterious. And it's like you go down that little alley and you go down that little valley and it's like, oh, maybe wrong turn. But you learn and you grow and you redirect. And that sounds, obviously, like I said, it normally happens when some significant event happens. And certainly sounds like that was the case. But again, like how much beauty can come out of something so tragic and hard, and it then sort of really awakens you into your great potential. And that's just like, wow, it's just so, it's like if we could really see God's equation for our lives, it's like, wow, so mysterious and beautiful. So now, you're just absorbing everything you can inside of this domain. What year are you in? And then where does sort of GBS come in? Like, because I remember you were actively, I think at that time, launching your online coaching.
Yes. I wanted, that's when I started the mindset coaching, because I wanted other people, particularly other Hildas that grew up in, I grew up in Huntington Park. I don't think everybody knows where that's at, but Huntington Park, California. And I felt like, how strange is it that you guys made it all the way to me there, like to Hilda from, Huntington Park. And so when I found all this out, I couldn't wait to tell everybody, you guys, look, it gets better. You could do this. And I wanted to share that with everybody. And so my coaching was more for, how can I get to invite people to come in for me to show them or explain to them what I went through, so they too can have what I had at that moment. And so then, yes, that's kind of where it started. And I'm telling you, I must have been a clip that you guys had posted about giving business soul. And it just made so much sense about aligning two things, right? It's like you want to make that money, but you want to have it so you're not doing it from just a survival. It's like a little bit of multiple components. And at that point, I was like, okay, let's check it out. Then you guys had the it's not a summit, but what you guys had, the flow workshop. And I was like, okay, it's a little far. I looked at the pictures. The pictures kind of convinced me.
Yeah, exactly. That's a nice location.
I'm like, okay. And I went there by myself and I tried to get everybody to join me.
Oh, wow.
Someone come with me, please, because I'm not going to know anyone and I'm going to be so nervous. And everyone's like, you got this. It's you. You could handle it.
These are your people.
Yeah. So I went, and not only did you guys tell me what I wanted to hear, you guys made me feel it.
Oh, wow.
The actual breathing, the whole experience of that. It was like, oh, you're not just fluffing up my ear to try to, sell me something, if you will. You're
Right.
showing me, look, this is a piece of what you could have, if you will, or experience moving forward. And when I felt that, I was like, oh. So then at the end, it was like, and I still had my skepticism because it was very fresh when I was still very, very raw, and I was like, okay. At that moment, I was like, that's a lot of money.
Sure.
I'm like, I'm not gonna join. You know, I love this, but I don't know if I could do that. I couldn't stop thinking about it when I went home. I went home, and it was just like, I'm not going anywhere. Then I mentioned it to my husband, and because he's, you know, he's like, oh, okay, you went to this place and they flipped you up. It worked.
Yeah.
It worked, Hilda. Like, they got you, type of thing, right? And I'm like, no, but this feels different, you know? And then me and you spoke. And when we spoke, again, you were speaking to my soul.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
now I know this. At the moment,
that,
at the moment, I didn't realize that, but you were speaking to my soul. And I was like, okay, let me speak to my husband, da 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 da. And I didn't speak to him. Because I didn't want him to pull me away from the confidence that I was feeling at that moment, because I knew that he wasn't going to understand, because he wasn't feeling what I was feeling. So then I was like, okay, like, here I go. I did it. I pulled the trigger, and it was the best decision I could have ever made.
Wow.
My goodness, has it, like, it has turned
thank you
over
for that.
everything. Yes,
Now I'm remembering, like, as you're bringing it all back, you know, it's like I remember you at the Padua Theater and saying, you know, I think I feel like now I'm sort of seeing it, because we had the ice bath outside and that whole thing, and I remember you coming through, and I remember us doing that Zoom, and I think there was something I might have said or something I might have saw, and it sort of caused maybe like a remembrance or an activation that sort of was additional confirmation.
I'm sure.
Yeah, and then yeah. So then, you know, one of the things that we obviously say about the Roundtable is that it's like an infinite return. You know, in the sense, like, once you go through it and you learn the sort of these things and the way to, like, language and the tools and these frameworks, how it's like you can use this for the rest of your life. Right, like, and it's going to continue to yield results. Like, how much has, like, emotional intelligence, as an example, like, bailed you out of a scenario, you know, where had you not really understood, you know, emotional intelligence, hadn't done the work, you know, it could have caused train wrecks of situations, and instead you have this sort of bag of tools that you can always pull from, and helps you to navigate life differently. And I think, what is it like? Because I think, like, for a lot of people, one of the things that I get a lot is, like, there's this deep sense of satisfaction in their life now, because they get a sense that they're at least kind of going in the right direction. It's not easy, you know, there's ebbs and flows, but when you're in one of those ebbs and one of those moments of entropy and melancholy, which is normal, that you don't, you know, beat yourself up, that you can have some grace and understand that there's something brewing, you know, and it just allows you to navigate, you know, differently and more gracefully through this very challenging human experience.
Yes.
So,
yes.
yeah.
And your question was more how. Repeat the question.
Yeah, it's more like, just like, what is it like now, sort of walking inside of this sort of new way of seeing the world, you know, that it's evolutionary in nature, that you can take a trigger, you can work through it, you know, you get more aware. Seems like, I mean, so much has even evolved around your health, the way that you take care of your temple,
oh, my
you
goodness.
know, like the sacredness of just this whole thing, you know.
Yes. Oh, perfect. So I think one of my biggest surprises out of all of this was, not only did it open up, because I felt like to some degree I had emotional intelligence. I just didn't know it. And I think that you guys just were able to say the things for me to recognize that I had that intelligence. And then I was able to refine that intelligence, I guess.
Beautifully said, yeah.
It wasn't just like, you know, I know this. It's like, oh, I know this, and I understand this on a much deeper level than I thought. And when I started to kind of put that and really start to live that, okay, because I never lived it before, because I didn't have the frameworks, right, that GBS was able to provide for me. I started to kind of follow that. I didn't think that it was going to show up on the outside of my own little world. So I've always lived in my own little world, and I can explain things, and I've always kept people like at a distance, even my own family, particularly my husband, because he's a realist. He's a realist. He likes data. That's all him.
Got it.
For me, it's all it's all magic, woo woo. Give me
Yeah.
all of that.
Yeah.
And when
Love
I
it.
started him showing signs of, a little bit more emotional intelligence. I started seeing my daughter. Like when I started seeing the evidence coming to my family,
Wow.
that's when I was like, oh my goodness, I had no idea that this was what's going to happen. This is what they mean by when you do the inner work for yourself, the outside will reflect it,
Wow.
right? You can say that, but if you're talking to someone who has never experienced that, it's going to
Yeah.
be like, what are you talking about? So I was like, okay, but I could see it within myself changing. My confidence, my happiness. When you experience the flow for the first time,
Yeah.
you're like, ooh, what is that?
Yeah.
Oh, like this is nice. But when you see other people around you experiencing the flow and they didn't know that they were experiencing the flow, it just made it that much more richer.
Wow.
And then at that point, it was like, I'm all in. I'm all in. This is real. This works. This is very much what I've been missing, although it didn't feel like it was missing and I had to go and find it. It was more like I had to open it and untap it, like it was clogged or closed, and all I had to do was go. And then
Wow.
that's when everything started flowing out, and then the coloring that you described, maybe everything just started coloring in my life, and I saw it being reflected financially, through my health, through my relationships. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was pretty amazing.
That's amazing.
Yes.
Yeah. It's because,
It
we
is. I think
and
it
you say it
is.
so well too, just because I think so often if we try to describe it
Yeah.
from a GBS perspective, it sounds like too fantastical that
Yes.
if you do this, it's really going to do, sort of touch all these areas. It's going to really like rearrange, self-organize, improve all these areas just simply by doing that. It sounds a bit incredulous, but I think, to your point, it's kind of one of these ideas of like, you can tell people how chocolate tastes, but until they really taste it, and I think that's like now that you're tasted it so well, it's like now you're so able to, again, describe it, how it plays out, how it unfolds.
Yes.
And that's the beauty. And I think, the way that I think I can add additional color to that, it's like, as you heal these different aspects of your sort of root system, as I like to call it, the first 21 years of your life, as the more that you begin to heal inside of there, it's like you certainly like reclaim a lost aspect of your consciousness, and also with that a lost frequency, like a lost vibration. It's something that was shame inside of you. Now you turn it into love or compassion. Now that vibration shifts, and as that shifts, now that sends the signal out into your field and ripples out immediately. And then the people that are in it are kind of caught in this little toroidal field, and then they start kind of coming over. And those that are closest to you, certainly the soil around you becomes very rich and very transformative, because, as you know, people don't do what you tell them. It's really they see you, they watch, they do as you do. Those little interactions where someone comes to you and his voice is a little bit elevated, and you just magically diffuse a rather tense situation with grace, and they watch that. And it's like, well, that's great. That it goes into their little data set and goes, okay. And, and you see that. And that's what we mean about, as you know, going through the round table, but like you become like the Holy Grail, right? Like you activate this energetic energy that's coming from your vessel, the cup overfloweth. And all of a sudden it's like your own little kingdom starts to beautify, and what's the potentiality if more people decide that, hey, this is the way home.
And you said that perfectly. You can't have them taste. I mean, they have to taste their own chocolate, if you will, and all you could do is just enjoy your chocolate so they could be tempted to eat their chocolate. And that's exactly what I think that happened, with, and I hate to use my husband all the time, but he was just my biggest project, I guess, because we live so close and we're just so different in that sense. But when I started doing, one of the first lessons I think that I learned when I joined the program was how much responsibility was on me. It was like, I've heard it before, oh, happiness is on you, but it's more to that. And you guys just explained it in a way where I was like, oh, okay. And as disappointing it was to know that I couldn't be fed all of my happiness, I was like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and work on ABCD, right? Because I wanted to. And when I started to, I started noticing that he started to feel a certain way. And to the point where it was at first maybe like his insecurities were even popping up because he was like, what's going on here? Like, this isn't like you type of thing, But I was like, I at that point realized that I had to take the pressure off of him, because I leaned on him for almost everything. I expected him to give me this, give me that. And I realized how much, nagging, I guess. I hate to use that word, but nagging, I was doing because I was relying on him, where it was like, why don't I have this yet? And it's, if I had this, if you could provide this for me, then I would be happy. And et cetera. So at the moment that I stopped doing that, because I realized that it's not his responsibility, right? I didn't tell him that. I just stopped, right? I think he felt energetically the lift off of, oh, okay, this girl's off my back, I guess, And then that's when I assume is when he started doing his shift, right? But it's because I took that pressure off. I stopped those expectations, and then it trickled onto the children, because I think then I was like, oh, you don't have to act this way for me anymore, because I thought my beliefs were you have to be XYZ, right? Because that's what I was taught. So the moment that I was, again, lifting off the expectations off of, my children, it was like they felt it too, I guess. And they were like, oh, okay. They almost like they were able to stretch into who they were supposed to be before I was kind of chokeholding them into molding them, right? This is who I want you to be, so I could be happy, so I could look like this to the world. So da-da-da-da-da. And the moment where I was like, you are okay just the way you are. There's a reason why you're this way. There's a reason why even my husband, which that was the biggest, there's a reason why he's that way, da-da-da-da. And that's it. I just accepted it.
Wow.
Just accepted it. They slowly started to evolve into their own little people that they are. And it just slowly, and I didn't notice it at the moment.
Yeah.
It really was a look back, and I was like, oh snap, good job, y'all. Like, you guys are doing so well. And then, I don't expect them to be like, what's all because of you? I don't think no, it's not really, and I don't even take it. It's just the moment and the situation that we were living, and how it just flourished.
Wow.
And so it was really nice. And,
that's beautiful.
That was my favorite. That's by far my favorite part about all of this.
I can imagine, right? And it's like, you understand that idea, like how they say, like, it's like in freedom, in love, there's freedom, and so I think being able to just accept people for who they are, and remove our expectations on top of what we have of them. It's like, and they can just be who they are, and then there's just a creativity and a freedom that'll flow through and into the space, and especially as the mother energy, just sort of, releasing and holding them as they are. I'm sure it's probably created just a very, because I've seen the pictures of what's happened too, like energetically.
I said to Jose, I'm like, look, look at this. Within a year, this happened.
And so tell us about that. Obviously, like. You went through the program, and then you saw the blueprint. You slowly, because we talk about it in the 4th module of discipline, and it's like we just recommend that you just make slow incremental changes, right? Don't like try to change everything, because we call it change saturation, and it becomes overwhelming. But it certainly looked like you just slowly just kept integrating different components of health, and it just changed everything.
And what's Yes, that's exactly what happened. But if I could go into explaining, which I think that people don't, they're like, okay, I integrated health and this happened, but how does it literally happen, right? Like how in real time, how is this happening?
Yeah.
And that's one of the gifts for me where I'm able to see that. In real time, what happened was, because I started having more self-esteem, then I started getting that, more money kind of fluctuated along with my whole adjusting awakening, if you will.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So when more funds started coming our way,
Yeah.
which was, a nice little surprise as well. Then I was able to sign up my daughter for soccer. Okay. I was able to put her in a club.
Got
Right. This coach was very strict. He's amazing. I give him a lot of kudos. I'm actually very thankful for him because he reshaped, her
Yeah.
through the soccer. Right. So it doesn't seem, and at that time it's like, okay, you're doing soccer. So it's like, okay, well, look, I know now that I have these resources, you could do this, this, and this. So that way you're able to be a better player. Da, da, da. So here's a health component comes
Got
along.
it.
Right. And I can't just tell her, oh, we can't eat that because we can't eat that. It's like, oh, I'm sorry, you can't eat that because you can't eat that.
Right.
We can't eat that because, so then I got to get involved and the dad's got to get involved and her sister's got to get involved, right? And so there she is in her world playing soccer, eating better because she wants to be a better player because I'm able to express to her through what I've learned here, hey,
Yeah.
just so you know, if you do this, this, and this, da, da, da. Also still showing, still
Yeah.
being,
Embodying
the exemplary so she
Yeah,
could see,
yeah.
right? At the same time, then my husband was like, oh, let's call it perhaps his insecurities of him, look at her. Like, she's,
Yeah.
I want to get it together now. So here comes the husband and he's like, oh, I'm going to, no, I'm good. You know what? I'm just going to not drink for 3 months, see how it goes. Da, 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 da. And then he started getting lean. And that's all he had to do too, stop drinking. And he starts losing all this weight. I have to do all this other stuff. So he started losing, right? And so then my 16-year-old, she's just like, oh, I'm like, all right, let's go for a walk together. Let's go do this. And then I'm explaining to her, again, I really think that a lot of it was how she was talking to herself. So in that, as she's growing as a teenager, right, she's like, okay, well, you know what? If we're all going to eat this together and we're all making this choice, it's fine. Da, da, da. So individually in their own little world, things were able to happen because of outside things that that are interconnected without us knowing.
Right.
And before we knew it, it was like, whoa, everyone was on their own little journey. And we and really it allowed for all of those changes to bring more happiness to come in.
Yeah.
And that genuine happiness is what helps flourish to kind of move forward. And and when you experience that again, you want more of it. And so we just kind of, and so before I knew it, I looked back in the year and I'm like, wow, I'm really proud of where everyone is at. Because I would have never thought that would have happened.
Wow. That's
So
beautiful.
yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine. I'm like seeing like just everyone in this energy of vitality and authenticity. And again, just like in a container of a home, I'm sure it's kind of like very rich soil where you wake up on a Saturday and there's a lot of life and beauty and so what's happened? Anything that to report maybe as it relates to like work or your career or professionally, because I know that that's we don't like to say, hey, you're gonna be promised to make more money. A lot of programs are out there, hey, and 1 year you're gonna 10x or whatever, and this one you can't really say that. I think the best we can typically say is we're gonna give you again everything that is really necessary for you to come into a place of fulfillment and in the direction of your purpose. And then what happens after that? It's a mystery. I mean, it could be you can 100 times your income, you can 1,000,000 times your income, you can double it, you can maybe drop it but feel much happier, and better. So it's kind of hard. But what's happened to you in that realm?
So it's interesting because I didn't think about the financial part at the beginning because I was so distracted by you have to do not have to do, but this is what I want to do in order to obtain what it is that I'm looking to have, which is more alignment. Yeah. Right. And one of the earlier things that I discovered for myself was that financially, I did it. I was like, oh, the money portion, I don't care as much for anymore because I really did start to feel fulfilled with what I had at that moment.
Got it.
And that's not that I didn't want more. It
Right.
was as if it was like, this is okay. I no longer, the feeling of lack wasn't as
I love
large
that.
as it was in the past, because when you start to realize that you want to live a soul-centered life, money, material,
Right.
but what's cool about that is that when I did that, genuinely, authentically did that without me having to do anything, that's when the finances so happened to work out.
Gosh, isn't that
That's when I so happened,
Yep.
we were, and again, this is all happening in little portions where it's like, oh, okay, we can, let's go get a car. Let's go, oh, okay, I could afford that. Okay, you don't think much of it,
Yeah.
Then, since then, probably 3 promotions.
Oh my gosh.
2, just programs, the
Yeah.
coaching program
Yeah.
kicked in
Wow.
because I was able to, before I could explain it, but now it was on a much deeper,
Yeah.
much more authentic,
Embodied,
exactly, embodied level, if
Yeah.
you will. So that shifted completely. It's almost as if more people started to believe, right? Like people
Yeah.
believe when you're really speaking
Yeah.
from a place of authenticity, people can feel it. And when
For
you're
sure.
talking from a place of like BS, people can feel that too.
Yeah.
So inevitably, that started rolling in as well. I mean, accolades that I had been, I didn't even know I wanted, but I was like, oh my, as a Leo, I love, I love attention and I love
So
praise
when is your
and all
birthday
that
coming
stuff.
up here?
Yeah.
When is your birthday?
August 10th.
Okay,
August
all right.
10th. Yeah. So I feel like this within itself to me is like a birthday present.
Yeah.
It's
Totally
like
for the
talk.
Leo.
Oh, yeah.
Annabelle, to bring up Annabelle's name here, 'cause we'll have to circle back in it because I
Yes.
do want to kind of go down the thread of
Yeah,
just some of
yeah.
the women's work that you guys have been doing. But yeah, anyways, go on with the story. Sorry.
So all of this started just kind of opportunities. Opportunities started to be visible to me
Yeah.
because I was no longer kind of blinded by my, woe is me, victim mentality. They have that, but I don't. How come not? Once you start dropping all of those things, that's when they start showing up in your reality. But more importantly, that's when you start to recognize that they're there.
Wow.
And that part, it was like, oh, okay. And it's just been that. And so now it's just me kind of playing. To me, it's like a game. And you mentioned a game earlier.
Yeah.
It really is a game. And I started restructuring to view it what made sense to me, what kind of, my language, my ways, and it was, it's been really nice to see. I've been able to travel more, which is really nice. I just came back from Nashville. It was super fun. I loved it. And even within that, I started, things still show up.
Sure.
Because even when I was, there, I was like, wow, we are splurging over here. And I just had to tell myself, there's more coming.
Yeah.
That scarcity mindset started to pop in.
Yeah.
But luckily I had the language.
Right.
Luckily I had that mentality that I've been working on where I was able to shut that down and say no. So little things like that. And sure enough, where I'm very blessed. I really do genuinely believe and trust that there's more out there, that there is. And although I don't see it, right? Although no one's telling me like, oh, you're going to be safe. No, that inner knowing that it's like, okay, I got this. And because of that, more comes. I don't know how to explain it. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. I think too, it's when, I think you said it really well there where, it kind of like when that internal shift, like you felt like there was nothing really missing per se. You felt much more whole, much more complete. There was no lack, I think was the word you said. And then it's just like, and then that obviously has a very specific vibration and frequency. And then it's just like, then your ability to sort of bring things, to you, because again, you're just in a space of like wholeness. And then what starts to come is more of a dharmic, sort of your higher pathway. And, and again, like to the point is that once these new things approach, that there is things to learn here, there is things to integrate, and you are going to sort of arrive to the end of that level. And it's going to be a doozy, and it's going to be challenging, and it's going to bring up some more darkness. But again, you got the tools. And one of the things that we were talking about before we got started really was that, like when you do the inner work, like that ego, again, you sort of deconstruct its coping mechanism, and in deconstructing the coping mechanism, that voice is no longer that self-sabotaging voice, but it sort of untangles from there, and it starts to do what it did for you in Nashville, right? Where it's like, no, you deserve this, and there is no lack, and there's more coming, and continue to trust. So it becomes an internal voice that's an ally, and it's having that just as detrimental as that voice is on the side of the adversary, like on the other side of it as an ally, it's like that's the ally you want, right? Just like this is the foe that you wouldn't want. It's
Yes.
like you wouldn't even be friends with that thing. It just beats you up constantly. Well, and it's trying to keep you safe, and it's trying to do its duty. So it's just a misassigned mechanism that is a very powerful tool that we have been given by God. It's kind of like our cheerleader, it's kind of like, no, you got this, you can do it. And when that thing starts to kick on, it's like there's a level of invincibility almost, where it's just like, as long as you got
Yes.
you and God, it's like
Yes.
I can overcome just about anything,
Yes.
and where is your journey now then inside of that? I mean, you've done, you're sort of a testament to just how powerful this internal work can be. Your family is, benefiting from it, your work environment, what you're doing there and progressing. Like what's next for Hilda now that you got this thing kind of laid out like that?
Well, what's really cool about all of this is that you start to discover more and more of what you like and what you want, um, instead of what you were told you want and what you're
Mm,
told to like.
so good.
And from that, I've discovered I'm like, okay, I want to write a book. I want to write a
Mm,
book, because I didn't realize how good my writing was. My
mm,
grammar not so well. My editor's gonna have a lot of work to do, but I'd like to write a book just because I recognize now, and this is based on the feedback that I get from my
mm-hmm,
listeners, from
mm,
clients, family and friends now, because they're just like, whoa, what's going on over here? And I'm starting to recognize gifts that I knew that I had to some degree before, but I
mm,
never thought that they would flourish into
mm,
anything, I
mm,
guess. And so now as I gather tools to show me who I am, such as the gene keys, right? Now you're
mm-hmm,
reading into that. Now you're getting a map. Now
mm,
you have this inner compass going,
wow.
right? It becomes a lot easier, or not easier, it becomes where you start to see, okay, not only do I want to do this, but you almost feel like you have a sense of
Mm,
duty to
mm-hmm,
do it.
right,
It's
totally.
like someone's calling
Mm,
to calling me to do this, and it's not and it doesn't necessarily, and I want to say that, but I don't want people to be like, you're not going to feel like I'm the chosen one,
yeah,
like,
that
and
too.
oh, I'm chosen to do this, and
Mm-hmm.
no, it just feels like when I'm going to do it, it's just going to be that fulfilling for
Yeah,
me.
yeah, and it doesn't feel like I mean, there's a sense of obedience, but but it's not
Yes.
like a heavy obligation. It's like you want to do
Correct,
it, you know?
correct.
Yeah.
Yes. It's a sense of exactly. That's actually really good. Yes, it's like, well, now I'm like, oh, well, I want to do this because I feel that it's going to help
Mm,
others
right.
recognize their own selves.
Yes.
And I'm like, okay, like this is going really good, let me tap into that. So I'd like to tap more into that. I'd actually, I go through like women's groups and
Yeah.
stuff like that, so I'd like to expand. Again, it's just more waking up other people to the
Mm,
understanding of what their potential is.
mm,
And as we shift into this new era in
mm,
our lives, where I frankly feel it's going to become easier to do, as long as you have the love within yourself, which you're going to
mm.
cultivate by me not showing you, but sharing, right? The
Yeah.
frameworks, the
Mm-hmm.
inner, helping you find your own inner mapping guidance, like that
Mm-hmm.
alone, your inner compass, if you will. That's it. Once that person gets activated, then that little world around her,
Mm-hmm.
him, is going to start creating these
Yeah.
waves to other people. And if you could do that, to one person, imagine being able to do that to anyone who picks up your book, to anyone who joins that group session, to anyone who, calls you for a one-on-one, whatever, then it's just all of these tiny worlds waking up to the realization that you don't need material things to be happy, that everything that you need within you truly is there, and it's just a matter of you allowing it to flow out and finding out what is the where's this resisting coming from, and all of that, and just showing everybody how to recognize themselves for who they came to be, waking them up to like, whoa, right? This is what I came to do. Then that to me feels like, okay, cool. Someone did that for me. I want to pass that forward. And I just want to have this endless flow of like, let's keep it going. I got this life, revival feeling of life with GBS. Let's go ahead and pass that forward to somebody else. And, I have to some degree with the podcast, some of the feedback that I get, I'm in awe when people tell me how, thank you so much, or aside from, of course it feels good. It's just more like, really, I was able to do that for you. Okay, perfect. And that person can then do that for somebody else. And that to me feels so much more fulfilling than anything else that I could do. Right. And in feeling that fulfillment, you're able then to attract more of it. So to some degree, it is maybe perhaps a little selfish of me, if you will, but it comes from a point of wanting to grow more of this self-love, self-assurance, respect, and all of that beautiful stuff that we know is here, that we need more than ever now to combat all of this negativity, ugliness that is happening in the world, that's going to be there, that we're always going to combat, but that I have, I'm going to develop this little army, if you will, within me and within other people, so that way we can start to have our own mini revolution, if you will, towards the good of what this world can bring.
Yeah. So I love that. Yeah, I love that flow. And as you were sort of saying that, it reminds me of like, the transformative process of the butterfly and like the imaginal cells and how they start to sort of activate the other ones. And then once enough imaginal cells get activated, it's like, then all of a sudden the caterpillar slowly becomes into the butterfly. And I think, that's exactly what awaits our humanity. And I think as more people discover the frequency of their authentic song, and more people begin to play that authentic song, it's like an entirely new symphony will overtake the earth. And with that, I think we bring in the reality. I think that's sort of woven within the known parts of the DNA. Like we can do this, this is within. I think it really is. I was having this conversation with somebody the other day, but I think this drama that's unfolding here on the earth is probably the greatest show in the universe. And I think when we begin to understand just how significant the human race is, not only, because of this pivotal point in evolution that we're in and what it means for this planet, but also for the entire cosmos. I think that's the revelation I think that's coming, our significant role inside the grand scheme of everything. And we will realize that we're insignificant and at the same time a lot larger than we ever anticipated, and that's a day that's coming, and I appreciate how much you're doing inside of that, and continuing to share what you're sharing and bringing more into that in the most humblest of ways. It's just like, but by being a living example of it, right? I think that's what we really talk about here, is just embody it and let people come when they're ready, if they're ever ready, and if not, no judgment. It's just the way things are. And I think the greatest work we can do for our entire species is to work of, knowing our own divinity, living from there to show others that this is the potential we got. So any closing thoughts or comments on anything you'd like to share?
I guess for me, no, just all I have is gratitude, I guess, overall. I have so much gratitude for GBS, for you, for Annabelle, oh my gosh, for Jose. All of you have given me so much. And it's not just, through the seminars. I think that your souls have spoken to mine, and that gratitude, I cannot explain enough how much I am grateful for it, because it really it helps me, even to this day, hold myself grounded whenever I start to kind of just get, because inevitably as we
Ebbs and
push
flows.
ourselves, into the next level, if you will, of our lives, we start to develop that insecurity within ourselves, and you all have been very gracious and selfless into being there, right, at whatever capacity that you could be. So I really am grateful for you all, for GBS, for everything that you guys do. I think this is big. It's major, and I'm just. Yeah, I just hope that, people who listen to this, their takeaway is just recognizing that there's nothing special going on around here or over there.
Right.
There is just a matter of you waking up to your potential from what you currently have and where you currently are. There's nothing missing, nothing lacking, although, the outside might make you feel that. And that when you recognize and almost come to terms, if you have to, if you will, about where you're at and how much it is not missing, that's when you're going to start to see the beginning of this beautiful road ahead of you. And that's not to say that there's not going to be any adversity or challenges. That's to say that when those adversity and challenges come, you are going to realize that you have what it takes to overcome them, to be able to move forward, to become the best version of yourself, even if that best version of yourself is all you want to just love yourself. All of the rest is extra. All the rest will be extra. All we need is for everyone individually to love and respect themselves, so everyone else can love and respect themselves. So that's it. It is very basic.
Yeah, solution to the whole entire debacle of a scenario that we live in.
Right? Because then we get that open mind. We start to see ourselves for who we truly are, instead of who we were told, and the constructions and the separation and the race and the da-da-da. Like, there's so many ways that we could be, separated. But deep down inside, when we start to realize all of us individually, we're all in it here for the same reasons. There's no anything other than you. And loving yourself, that's when you're going to start to see what you really want, what you're really asking for. So, thank you for providing that for me. I hope to continue doing that for other folks, and I'm looking forward to more of this.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, I think with that, Hilda, thank you again for that. That just to close out that pet part there, it reminds me, I think it's Robert Frost. I may have that wrong. Somebody fact check it, but. It's like this idea of like, two roads diverged into the woods, and I took the one less traveled, and that's made all the difference. And it certainly feels that you had the courage to take that path that was less traveled into that forest, and that's made all the difference. And I think you're just such a beautiful testimonial to, like you said, everything is within us, and once you just have the courage to start going in and doing this, and what starts to come out, it's really why we're here. And I think once people figure that out, and this is the way home. This is the way home.
This is the way home.
So thank you for showing that, for embodying that, and thank you for being a part of the community.
Thank you so much.
So welcome.
Appreciate you having me here. Appreciate you.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on the Giving Business Soul podcast. If you want to learn more about the transformative work we're doing, please visit our website at givingbusinesssoul.com. Discover how you can make a difference in the world through your business while fulfilling your spirit, enhancing your health, vitality, and relationships. And until next time, stay inspired, my friend.